Welcome, Koon. How are you? Thank you so much for joining us today. How are you going?
Very good, thank you.
Good.
And yourself?
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you. I'm really good. Tired. It's that kind of like that end of the year feeling, but I'm absolutely good. I cannot complain. So, thank you for joining us today. People are just kind of connecting in now,
Hmm.
but you are an executive coach,
Hmm.
yeah?
Yep.
Which I'm going to find out all about what that is and what you do and who you help very, very soon. And you specialize in helping migrant leaders. Is that right? So, leaders from overseas who want to improve their leadership skills in Australia. Have I got that right?
Yep.
Yeah,
Migrants, and also non-migrants.
yeah,
And what typically kind of drawn them to me was my understanding of their lived experience.
yeah,
So that's generally like about 80% of my clients are from like culturally diverse leaders in
yeah.
Australia.
Perfect. And yeah, we were just talking about that just before I clicked live, that a lot of my community and my clients right now are really appreciating the kind of the stories from people like you who have come to Australia maybe 10, 11, however many years ago, and you've faced the challenges and you've overcome the challenges. And now you're here, you've got a house, you've got a family, you've built the life here. So it's really inspiring and motivating for a lot of people out there to hear about your story. Which
Yes.
brings me my first question. So I guess introduce yourself first of all,
Hmm.
who you
Yep.
are, and what you do, and then a little bit about how long you've been here. What was it like when you first got here?
Yeah, thank you, Natalie. So, my name is Koon. I'm an executive and leadership coach to many culturally diverse leaders in Australia and around the world. I'm also a mum of three boys. And I suppose my journey actually started so I grew up in Malaysia and Chinese, my heritage is Chinese. I would say like my first language is called the Manglish.
Yeah,
So Manglish is like a combination of Malay words, English, Cantonese, Tamil, all lumped into one.
yeah,
And so for a long time, I always felt like insecure about my English. The thing is, though, like in Malaysia, there is targets and quota, and so with the systemic barrier, I always kind of knew that if I needed to progress my studies, I would have no choice but to either do it overseas or with private university.
yeah.
So I always had that insecurity about my English. So how I speak to you today wasn't how I started with, right? It
Yeah,
was
you got the Aussie
grammatically
flag.
wrong. Gosh, that was like so. I first came here as an international student when more than 25 years ago,
Yeah,
right?
wow.
So I remember in uni, I was just speaking my Manglish, and somebody come up to me and go, "Oh, what language is that?" And I'm like, "English." They're like, "Really?" I'm like, "Yes." And I was in law school as well, so that made it
Yeah,
worse. You have all these kids with big words that they're just throwing around, and I really felt so lost. And it was also the time where, yeah, I kind of like nearly failed in my law subjects.
yeah,
And that was like a real like shock. And
yeah,
I've got no one that I can kind of ask for help. Like how do I do this? It wasn't something that I was like kind of used to. And I
hmm,
remember going to the uni library and I read through like all the top students' exam answers. And I figure out that there's a pattern of answering exam questions. And
oh,
once I
okay,
figured out there was a pattern, I applied that pattern. And so then that me got back to like top of my subjects, right? And that was a big learning for me that in Australia, there are rules of engagement to succeed. And you got to have that ability, which really we have been trained since child to read the room. So part of that is learning to read the rules of success in the workplace and go,
Right.
right, what am I observing here? What am I learning here that is going to help me progress? And what is it that I'm going to lean on as from my values, from my cultural background that's going to help me? Because it's also important not to lose
Yes.
ourselves and not to
Yes.
contort to fit
Yes.
because that's what we see. But it's more going, oh, what is the rules of engagement here? Now, which part of my authentic self can I draw upon to succeed? And that was a big learning for me. And then after that, I joined.
Sorry, I have to ask you, what are those rules? Like, what is it? What's the rules of engagement in Australia? I don't know this,
So,
guy. I'm from Scotland, but I've been here 11 years. I don't think I know this yet.
so, um, so in corporate Australia, social capital is a very important thing. So, social
Like,
capital, your relationships, who you know, and how do you become visible to them. All of
yes,
those are important. And therefore, part of that rules of engagement, if you think of the workplace, right? Meetings, for example, especially when you have senior stakeholders, right? That's like a stage where you become visible, your competence become visible, and how
yeah,
senior stakeholders can see your potential. That's how they
right.
assess it. That's how they assess it because they don't have the time to know the detail of your work. They don't have
Yes,
enough time to have a lot of one on one to know you better. So,
yeah,
presentation, meetings, those are moments where you can become visible to them for them to assess your potential.
that makes so
And
much
so
sense.
while people get so annoyed and say, oh, well, that just means that's why people who just say things for the sake of saying things get rewarded and recognized. I don't want to just toot my own horn or hear my own voice. But that's the thing about what is it that you can draw from yourself that is true to you in that
Yes,
environment, knowing that that is where your competence can be assessed, right? And so for me, my cultural value is around community. So,
mhm,
what can I share? Information that I can share, insights that I can share that can be helpful to people in that room.
yeah,
That's
right.
drawing on my values, right? And my upbringing. If you're going to say something valuable to other people. So then I
Yeah,
go into those meetings being intentional about what
mhm.
can I contribute to help other people. And
I
so
love
that's what
that.
I mean by understanding the rules of engagement, but
Yeah.
draw from what is true to you to succeed.
So I feel like I feel like I've interrupted you, and I'm so sorry. But if I don't ask this now, I'll forget. ADHD brain. But if someone, and I absolutely love that, and that's honestly something that I didn't know. I didn't know this, and it makes 100% sense to me. And I know that a lot of my clients and community, they do struggle to be their authentic self. And as you said, they feel like they have to change. And perhaps it's because they don't fully understand Australia and the rules of engagement. So, what advice would you give to someone who's listening, who wants to find their true values and how they could use that at work to do, what you just suggested?
I would say practice your observation skill. So
Mhm.
a lot are actually very thoughtful and reflective, before they say anything. So lean on that skill, lean on that
Yeah,
strength, and go, okay, what am I observing here? What's going on
yeah,
here? Right? How are people excelling? So that's one part of the equation, right?
yeah.
The second part of the equation is actually going, how well do I understand myself? How
Hmm.
well do I know myself? What's my
Hmm.
strength? What's my values? So that is a
Hmm.
lot of like self reflection.
Yeah.
Then you take it to the third step, which is go, okay, how do I now align what is true to me to what is required to succeed? So that's the triangulation there. Now,
Yeah.
it's not always easy And
Of
it's
course
not,
it's not.
especially if you're trying, and it's not going to come easy, but
Yeah,
it's the practice, it's the accumulation of that over time. So keep
absolutely. Yeah.
practicing that observation, keep practicing self reflection, and keep asking yourself
So, as a
how.
guide, how long did it take you to do this? As a guide for someone
Oh,
listening?
if you think about it, right, I just started since I was in uni.
Yeah.
But that skill that came was actually since childhood. So a
Hmm.
lot, and probably a lot in your like your audience as well. When we were children, we are expected to sit when the adults are talking and just be quiet. You can't say anything. You're expected to just sit there and just show your form of respect when the adults, the guests, and all of that are gathered together and they talk about all sorts of different things.
Yeah.
And so you're expected to sit there and listen. That's how you're gonna like learn what they're talking about. And you start to observe, oh, who is powerful, who is influential, or what words did they use, right? So for the community, that's part and parcel of operating in a community. You actually know your community and what is driving them.
Hmm.
So that's actually innate. That's something that we grew up with, and that's something that we should draw upon
Yeah.
and use that now be more intentional to use that in the workplace.
Absolutely. I love that. And intentional. Intentional is a
Intentional.
really great word to
Yeah.
use there. Wonderful. I love that. Back to your original trail of thought about when you came here. I'm sorry to interrupt there. That was just really, really interesting. And I know people are going to love that and get a lot of value and insight from that.
And so, yeah, when I finished uni, like many other international students, I couldn't get a job here. I sent in hundreds of application and zero success rate. There were definitely a few things that I would have like one, if there's a bias around, you need to have your PR. Regardless of what the visa rights are, they prefer somebody who are citizen or permanent residency. So it was a bit, sorry,
That's okay.
it was a bit disappointing. But then I learned my second lesson, which is connections,
Yes.
relationships.
Yes.
At that time, I had a really good relationship with somebody in the university.
Hmm.
And, just building that relationship, I'll often catch up coffees with her and I'll remember to say thank you and all of that for the help that I'm getting from her. And
Yeah.
then I told her, I'm looking for a role. And that's when she connected me to somebody in Malaysia and got me a job in Malaysia.
Ah, okay.
So that's the other thing, which is, and even here in Australia, a lot of jobs actually also come through your connections.
Yeah. Okay.
You can apply definitely, but then there's so many people, so many applicants that they have to go through.
Yeah.
But if you are being recommended by somebody,
Hmm.
you're more likely. But no one is going to recommend you, go, hey, can you recommend me? If they don't know you from above, so investing in relationship is important.
Hmm.
Some people might go, oh, but who am I? Um, what do I have to offer? Why would they even talk to me? I would
Hmm.
say like everyone has something to give. So
Hmm.
use generosity of spirit. You
Yeah.
go in conversation always thinking, I got this framework, I call it the CIA framework. In every conversation you go into, I know I love frameworks. It's helped me with decision making fatigue.
Yeah. Good. Yeah.
So CIA, go into every conversation thinking about the connection. Like as you listen to their problems or what they're sharing with you, who are the people that you can connect them with? C for connection,
Mm.
right? And then A for action. Oh, sorry, I for information, right?
Hmm.
So what is the information that I can share with them that is going to help them with what they're trying to achieve?
Yeah.
And then A is action. What actually can I do that can help them? So if
Ah.
you go into every coffee conversation, always thinking about how you can give.
Yeah. I love that.
CIA.
That's I love it because I feel like so many people, and that's what I've spoken about with a few other
Mm.
people who I've interviewed, is like everyone always expects the person to give to them. So it's in networking, I feel like the mindset, in my experience with my community, sorry guys, is that it's quite a taking kind of mentality
Oh,
and so much pressure as well. It's like, I'm going to go to this coffee chat and get a job. No, like it's not as quick as that. So I love that. So giving and the CIA framework.
giving. And if I think about it, that come from my cultural values. You
Yeah.
know, you focus on giving,
Hmm.
right? Before taking, you focus on giving. And
Yeah.
give with no expectation because that's where sincerity comes in. And
Yeah.
when people feel that you are sincere,
Hmm.
um, and think about this, right? The things that you're giving is very likely to be the things that you are the expert in.
Hmm.
And so that actually then build a brand perception of what you're about.
Hmm. Yeah.
So when they have a particular problem or particular opportunities relating to the things that you always help them in, guess what? You are going to be the first name that they're going to think about.
Absolutely love that. That's so right. So it's personal brand. I actually dislike the word personal brand, and I know a lot of my community do as well. It feels a bit icky, like
Yeah.
the word personal brand, but it's quite important, isn't it? Is there another word you could use for personal brand that could,
So I get the whole allergy. There's a lot of words that I have a allergic reaction
yeah, yeah.
to as well because it comes from the space of it feels very self-centered.
Hmm.
And because of that, whatever that word that I'm allergic to, I try to reframe it from a community point of view.
Yeah, I love
So,
that.
and so when I'm thinking about the giving, right, that's from the perspective of the community, of helping another person,
Yeah,
comes from generosity of spirit.
yeah,
The outcome later on was what I'm known for, but
yeah,
that's a byproduct of it.
yeah, yeah. That's
So
right.
without realizing, you are creating a particular brand. Everyone has a personal brand. That's the thing. You
Yeah,
always have a personal brand, which is what will people, when they hear your name, what will they associate you with?
yeah. I have the allergy to networking, the word networking.
Yeah.
And I spoke to one of my group coaching calls one time, and we changed it to connection. Just
Yes.
connection, because that's all it really is connection. And that
Yeah.
goes really well with your idea of giving and
Giving.
your strategy. So yeah, I love that. Perfect. So can you tell us what you do now as an executive coach?
Yeah. So maybe I'll close it off with that
Yes, please.
learning from the connection to landing me a job, which subsequently was also helpful. I then eventually came back to Australia and worked with one of the big four for 20 years.
Oh wow.
And yeah, I worked for the big four for 20 years. I was in audit. And then after that, I was in transformation.
Yeah.
So the other, well, I was doing a lot of different things in between as well, which is the courage to kind of not, I would say the learning was not getting outside of our comfort zone, but to stretch our comfort zone.
Mm-hmm.
So, what I mean by that is most of the advice are, oh, get out of your comfort zone, you know, but there's a
That's it.
risk involved with that.
Yeah.
And I once went out of my comfort zone, completely out of my comfort zone. I was doing blockchain. Can you imagine? I got no tech background, no nothing. And blockchain was then like the hype. So I became a blockchain consultant. Now, gosh, that took me down to like a complete black hole. And I that's where I learned my lesson that, yes, get out of our comfort zone, but in the context of always playing to our strength 80% of the time
Yeah.
and stretch the 20%. So every time you kind of center it on your strength 80%, you will operate from confidence.
Yeah. No, that's so
And
right.
then you stretch, that gives you new opportunities. And after a while, that 20% will then become your strength.
Yeah.
So if you keep doing this, it will just means that you are broadening and deepening your expertise, right? And
Yeah.
so that was that journey. And that's how I went from my audit and then transformation. Well, audit, blockchain, transformation. And then I started writing content on LinkedIn. That was my 20% stretch.
Mhm.
Remember about the insecurity about writing?
Mhm.
So, final frontier, writing publicly and let everyone judge my terrible grammar, which it still is. Because, again, going back on the giving, what is it that I can share with the community that's going to help them? Whilst at the same time stretching my comfort zone around writing publicly. So
Yeah.
I started writing 4.5 years ago because there was a problem I was keen to solve, which is a lot of migrants, just like myself, we have no one to go to for advice.
Mhm.
And if we were to ask people back home, the advice that we get, and I remember thinking the same thing, they don't understand how it works here.
Mhm.
And that was a problem I was keen to solve. And that's why I wrote. I wrote every single day with a mindset of helping, with a mindset of giving.
Yeah.
And at the same time, I lean on my strength around transformation, which is test, iterate. So everything that I wrote, it was a testing. And then how do I iterate that? And just use that testing and iterate kind of as part of my strength to
Yeah.
stretch myself in writing,
Mhm.
which then resulted in people reaching out for coaching.
Ah, yep. Okay.
So that's what I mean by center on 80%, stretch 20%.
Mhm.
People started asking for coaching. I go, interesting. So I started to get myself accredited
Mhm.
and then finally took the leap out to do it full time after writing on LinkedIn for 3 years.
Yeah. Right.
Yep. And so what I do now is leadership coaching
Yep.
because I realized that, if we really want to see inclusion and diversity at senior leadership level,
Mhm. Yeah.
that's a space that I can help with using my 20 years of executive experience, of all the learnings of that rules of engagement to succeed,
Yeah.
and actually coach more people so that they can also be at that senior leadership level,
Yeah.
but never about contorting themselves, but actually coaching them to draw from their cultural strength, their cultural values to show up authentically.
Yeah. Wow.
That's what
Perfect.
I do.
Excellent. And that you're absolutely right, because there's so much discussion, because I work with people who mostly are not new to Australia. Maybe they've been here 5, 6, sometimes longer,
Mm,
but they're relatively new to their professional career in Australia after going through the migration process, the English
mm,
language skills, the finding the job. So the stage that I support them with helping them to build their
mm.
confidence, communication, and get the job, what happens then? Like
Yeah,
there's a lot of stagnation in between, and there's a lot of media about we need more inclusive leaders, we need more
yeah,
migrant women at the top. So there needs to be someone to actually support them to get to the top and to get into leadership roles. Absolutely.
exactly. Because there's just so much systemic barriers as it is.
Yeah.
And so, how do we, be part of that solution to take down this like systemic barriers?
Hmm.
In the first place, is to even help people to kind of be aware of what are those systemic barriers. And why it's so hard to see is because when you're part of the system, it's treated as the norm,
Yeah.
treated as the normal. For example, the word gravitas and presence. Yeah, every moderation, you will hear that, oh, yeah, we want people with gravitas and presence. But what exactly does that mean? How
Yeah.
does that look like, sound like, and how do you know from a behavior point of view? Or are we just imposing a stereotype of presence over and over and over again?
Yeah.
And that's the thing about going, okay, what is the stereotype of presence and gravitas?
Hmm.
Now, what is it specifically that they're looking for?
Hmm.
How do you then use your cultural strength to show that gravitas rather than try to fit in? So I'll
Yeah.
give you an example. I was taking a particular cohort through a leadership program, and it's called Own Your Voice. And when she did her presentation, I was so proud. This was in front of executive. I was so proud when she did her presentation. the way she demonstrated this gravitas was she used her own cultural story to
Yeah.
demonstrate inclusion. So she said, in one hand, on my one hand, you can see cinnamon, cloves, and cardamom. She said that is diversity. But when you blend it all together into a
Hmm.
garam masala,
Yeah.
that is inclusion.
I
Yeah,
love it.
exactly.
I love it. Yeah.
That was incredible. Like it stuck with everyone in the room.
Yeah.
That's impact,
That's
right?
empowerment as well for her to be able to do that for sure. That's amazing. So can you tell us, I love that. I'm trying to remember to quote that when I write when I write the replay list.
Yeah, but that's the thing. Why it was special was because it was done from her own authentic background, like her own authentic self. If
Yeah.
it's said by somebody else, it would not be like of different background. It would not be the same,
Yeah, no,
right? And that's what everyone need to feel empowered to do is to draw on that. We've heard a lot of the what, the attending the dance, but being invited to the party, but also dancing, right?
mhm,
That's nothing wrong with it.
mhm,
But for another person to bring spices into garam masala to
mhm.
show the meaning of diversity and inclusion
Yeah,
from her own background, that is special.
it
That's what
is.
more people need to feel empowered to do.
Absolutely. So, can you tell us? You talked about some of the barriers. So,
Mm,
assuming that people who are watching this, maybe without any assumptions, maybe at the early stage of their careers, and maybe they've
mm,
had leadership roles back in their home country, but they have to start from the beginning at an entry level or mid level in Australia, and they're not
mm.
really ready to
Yeah,
be that leader yet, but it's a future goal.
yeah.
What are the barriers that they should be aware of in the workplace?
There's barriers around. I think it's more around the how would I say the opportunities,
Yeah.
right? There are barriers around opportunities. You see the same people getting recognized, rewarded for the same, like for that opportunity. It's always the same people. But if you ask the people who make that selection, they'll be like, "Oh no, I picked the best person for that opportunity." Right? But there's no real. There's this kind of like bias that exists, but it doesn't. It's not conscious.
Yeah.
To promotion,
Yeah.
right? And now we've got research to kind of show that when it comes to like promotion, the probability of progression for somebody that is non-Anglo, especially moving up to senior executive role, it ranges from 60 to 80% in terms of like the probability difference. Now that's huge. When you're in the lower grade, it's about 10%. When you're in manager grade, it's between 20 to 40%. And
Yeah.
then when you want to get to the executive role, it's now become 60%.
Yeah.
So if we have the assumption that every person that we recruit, we are recruiting like the best that we can recruit based on merit, how is it that over a period of career progression, that probability reduces? Like that's such a big gap.
Yeah.
So
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I
all
didn't
of that.
realize that statistic, but yeah, that's insane. Yeah.
Yeah. So you might not feel it when you are in the lower grade.
Yeah.
And so what I would say to people is that systemic change for you to actually make change in that systemic change on your own is really difficult because it's so ingrained. And then if you try, you might then get labeled as the troublemaker,
That's
or you're not a
exactly
team
why.
player.
Yeah.
So there's penalty that comes with it too.
Yeah.
And then what would then happen is people would just leave from one job to another job to another job. And that sometimes it works in your favor because, as you change jobs, you then get remunerated better, hopefully. But does it then take you to that kind of leadership role that, you're aspiring to have for yourself?
Hmm.
And that's the message that I want the community to hear, which is so much of the investment in ourselves is about making ourselves technically better.
Hmm.
12 years of school, 3 to 5 years in uni, and then another 3 to 4, 5 years in our postgraduate, and for
Mm-hmm.
some of us, even more in terms of professional qualification.
Mm-hmm.
All of that help us to be technically good.
Yeah.
And every time we face a career barrier, we feel that if we want to, progress ourselves, we invest more in our technical skill.
Yeah.
And I would say to the community is that you need to start going, if you aspire to be in leadership role, but you're investing in your technical, are you aligned in where you're investing in yourself between your aspiration and where you're investing? And should start to think about investing in their leadership skill. And there are trainings out there, there
Yes.
are workshops out there, there are coaches out there.
Mm-hmm.
So start to invest. Don't wait until uh, when you're ready or
Yeah.
where you're already enrolled.
Yeah.
There are too much opportunity costs and time, and you can't get that back.
Absolutely. And don't wait until you're ready. Like as you said, I'm just repeating what you said, but don't wait until you've missed an opportunity and you feel frustrated that you didn't get the promotion when you haven't done any work on
Yeah,
yourself in the years before to be ready for that promotion. So
exactly.
so can you tell us, come down to early career level
Mm.
questions, what skills do people need to know to learn to upskill about leadership? So obviously you get the overall umbrella term of leadership skills, but there's a lot of other different skills, soft skills, transferable skills
Yep.
that would come from it. Can you tell us a few of them?
So in the early careers, I would say self awareness.
Yep. Yep.
Okay. Self awareness is about knowing who you are as a person.
Mm-hmm.
What's your values,
Yep.
right? And then also knowing that how you are interacting with other people is impacting other people.
Mm-hmm.
Often we can see, oh, that person wasn't very nice, or that situation wasn't great, or they were this, or they were that, right? But we need to flip that back on ourselves and go, what is it that I, say or do that is, and how has that impacted other people?
Mm-hmm.
What can I develop or change that can create a different response from another person? So self awareness is a big thing.
Yeah, that's really interesting you said about, flipping it back, because I do a lot of work with my clients on
Mm,
the very basics of self-awareness in terms of, knowing their value and their achievements and the skills and, what they can give and what they've done, etc. But
mm,
I wouldn't have gone that far. And that's a really, really important factor as
yeah,
well.
yeah.
Absolutely.
Because you gotta ask yourself, you can't change and control other people's behavior, but
Mm-hmm.
you can change and control yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And the change that you do for yourself and how you speak and behave
Mm-hmm.
is what will create that chain reaction in how other people respond to you.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's definitely number one.
Mm-hmm.
Two, all the things that you have an allergic reaction to, networking, politics,
Mm-hmm.
personal brand, speaking up, all of that, right? All the words that you have an allergic reaction to, examine what is the underlying belief that you have an allergic reaction to.
Mm-hmm.
And then ask yourself, what is it that is true to me that I can draw upon that will still get me the outcome,
Yeah.
right? Because politics in itself is another side of the coin to stakeholder management,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah. It is. I
And
just
then
I dislike office politics as much as anyone listening to this, but yeah, you're absolutely right. It is stakeholder management. Yeah.
it's stakeholder management.
Yeah.
The difference is one is perceived to be not doing a good thing, so
Yeah.
had a bad intention,
Mm-hmm.
but another one is bringing alignment, right?
Mm-hmm.
So then treat it as stakeholder management, stakeholder alignment.
Perfect.
You have an allergic reaction to networking, well, then go giving or building connections, like you say, Natalie.
Yeah.
So, personal brand, well, you want to be recognized, right?
Hmm.
So, if you want to be recognized, then you got to show the things that you want to be recognized on.
Yeah.
So, all the words that you have the allergic reaction to,
Change it.
examine them
Hmm.
and figure out how you can reframe.
Yeah.
Third one, build relationships early. Don't
Hmm.
wait until later to build that relationship. Coffees is so underrated here,
Yeah.
um, amongst the community, but it's so, so important
Hmm.
because you are going to build relationships, you're going to expand your knowledge, you have a much broader perspective, and
Hmm.
opportunities come from those like coffees.
Yeah.
So may not be directly of the person you're having coffee with. Typically, it's going to become from the network of the person that you have coffee with.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the fourth one, invest early in your own leadership skill, even if you're not a leader yet.
Yeah. Yeah. So that brings me to, if someone's listening to this and it's really resonating with them, they know that they want to be a leader, they've been a leader before perhaps, and they might want to work with you.
Mm.
How could someone, you said you had a program. Did you mention
Yes.
the program? So can you tell us a little bit about kind of the work that you do with people?
So the programs I do are typically with organizations. So if there's anybody out there who are responsible for the different leadership programs in their organization, reach out, DM on LinkedIn,
Yeah.
and happy to chat through. My signature program is called Own Your Voice with
Yeah.
Soundwave, and that's helping people. So let me reframe. A lot of leaders spend a lot of time talking. Well, not even leaders, other people as well. But we're very unaware of the way that we talk.
Mm-hmm.
So Own Your Voice is helping us to be aware,
Mm-hmm.
helping us to understand the impact on other people,
Mm-hmm.
and then we can be more skillful in how we talk so that we get to the desired outcome.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So the application, whether that's courageous conversation, whether that's presentation, you know, whether that is about lifting teams, empowering teams, there's a broad range of use cases. So
Mm-hmm.
that's what I do
Mm-hmm.
as a program. But I also do a lot of one on one coaching with people.
Mm-hmm.
So if they're individuals, they can reach out on DM. We will to have a chemistry check to see if there's a fit to
Yeah,
work
that's
together.
important. That's so important, isn't it? We talked a bit about that.
Yeah,
Yeah, fits mutual respect. I'm very big on mutual respect as well.
yeah,
So yeah, chemistry chat. I love that. I love the name of that, chemistry chat. To see if there's a spark and a connection there. I love
yeah.
it.
Because everyone, you will have the coach that will work for you, that can bring out the magic in you.
Yeah,
That's why we've got the diversity of people and diversity of coaches. So
yeah.
find the one that was going to bring out the magic in you.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. So many incredible insights that you've given us. CIA, love that. I'm gonna have to go back and listen to it just so that I get all the little truth, like the little bits of wisdom to pop in writing. But is there anything else you'd like to say to anyone, or anything else just generally you'd like to say before I finish?
Never lose sight of your dream.
Yeah,
When we come into this country with all the challenges and the barriers that we feel, and sometimes it can feel so unfair,
yeah,
but always know that you're resourceful enough. You already taken the risk to come to a brand new country and never lose sight of the dream that you have for yourself
absolutely.
because you can still achieve that dream.
I love that, and yeah. And I feel like maybe now, compared to when you arrived 25 years ago, there is more support for people. That is, there are communities, there's women's groups, there's different groups, and you should even, there's free ones and there's paid ones, and just take
Yeah,
advantage of that as well as a
absolutely.
step.
Yeah. And listen to all the different podcasts
Yeah,
that Natalie is going to produce out.
yeah,
And be resourceful.
yeah,
You've always had that. Risk taking, you also already have that.
yeah.
Community, giving, generosity of spirit. Use all of that. Use all of that strength and go for that dream. Don't lose sight of that dream.
Don't lose sight. I love that. Well, thank you so much, Koon. You've been amazing. You've taught me a lot actually, in terms of things that I hadn't thought about and how I can be a better. Well, I'm not necessarily. Well, you don't even have to be. In my opinion, you don't even have to be in a managerial role to be a leader. I think personally, everyone should be investing in leadership skills. So you've taught me a lot about how I can do better for myself as well. So thank you sincerely. Thank you so much.
You're very, very welcome. Because someone said to me, the leaderships actually start with self leadership.
Yeah, it's true, right? Yeah,
If you can't lead yourself, how can you lead other people? So
yeah.
start with self.
Self awareness, then self leadership, right?
Yep,
Yeah,
that's it.
perfect. If anyone has any questions, you can pop them on the comments of this replay, and I'm sure Koon would be happy to answer, or I'll be happy to answer, or I'll send it on to her. And yeah, this replay will be available off LinkedIn as video and audio on my website really soon. So yeah, you can listen at your leisure. But thank you once again, Koon, and thanks for taking the time to do this when you're going on holiday on Monday as well. We really, really appreciate it.
Very, very welcome. And I enjoyed the conversation, Natalie.
Yeah,
Good questions.
yes, got it. The validation I need. Thank you.
You're very welcome. And you have a wonderful holiday as well.
Thanks, Koon. Bye.
Bye.